everyone, welcome again to the channel. Today we're back on GT Sport and we're back with the daily race C that was on at Bathurst, driving the Group 4 GT4 cars. As you can see there, I'm starting P4. I qualified in the Dodge Viper on a 2 minutes 10.9, but I've decided to race this race in the Citroen because it can do the race without pitting. You can see P2 is also going for this strategy. This car is extremely hard to drive, as you can see there from the viewpoint, driving this car from in-car. But we're going to go through to the replay camera for the start of the race, and we're going to mix the cameras up as we go through the race. So starting from P4, trying to make sure I can get close to that slipstream of the driver in P3 in that Dodge Viper, to ensure that I've got a bit of protection up the straight, because straight away, to get this strategy done and to do it reasonably well with some reasonable speed, you need to start fuel saving pretty much straight away. So short shifting all the way up this hill now and maintaining reasonable speed. The good thing about this Citroen is it keeps its tyres very well, and also it's very close to being as good as the M4 before they patched it in terms of the short shifting. It's obviously not got the ability to maintain the speed to the same degree as the M4. It's way slower in terms of lap time, but it's able to do the fuel saving very well. So it is a hard car to drive purely because of the view. For myself, it handles really well. It's got great handling. But for myself, in that cockpit view, it was really hard to get an angle so that I could actually see the apexes, especially going through these corners. Now when we jump on board later on in this race, you'll see what I'm talking about. There was a horrible reflection that was getting in my way, and it was really causing me issues through these really fast left hand corners. As you can see there, going through the downhill section now, very close between the top four. Zocchi in the front managing to pull away. He's on a pit stop strategy, so he's pushing really hard in that Dodge Viper, a very fast driver at Bathurst anyway, so it was going to be really hard to even get anywhere near him. As you can see there, riding on board, looking back at ourselves, and like I say, this view looks amazing on GT Sport. I do like looking back at the camera angles, looking back on the drivers driving down that downhill section. It really does look good. As we're now going to jump on board with the two other cameras at the top of the screen and the onboard footage, where I can show you what I'm talking about by the in-car view. You can see I had the seat quite high up. That's because the dash is really high, but then that causes the issue that the roll bar gets in your way on really fast left-hand corners, especially going when you're uphill slightly, because the apex, you can see it slightly there, but that's not as bad as the middle sector, which we're going to come to after later in the race, where I'll show you the issue I had. But that roll bar was really causing an issue. But I wanted to race on the in-car view. I don't want to race on any other view, because I wouldn't enjoy the game anywhere near as much if I was racing on the bonnet view or down to the ground. I want to be in the cockpit and feel like I'm in the car. It makes me more immersed, and I do enjoy it. And also I need to practice with this car anyway, just in case if this car becomes really overpowered for any reason in the future. I want to be able to drive all these cars. And another issue with this car, which you can see there, the reflection in the middle of the screen, I'm going to show you as well, that really does cause me issues in the middle sector as well. But you can see it pretty much covering the car in front, and it was really frustrating. I mean, I know it's the little details count, but that was a little bit frustrating for me. I don't think it needed to be as obvious as that reflection. I think they could have toned that down a bit. I don't know if there's an option to change that slightly, but I very much doubt it. It's probably just a feature that's in the game, and you can't probably alter it all. As you can see there now, look at the roll bar again. I cannot see the apex going through that corner because of the roll bar. So I've just got to try and pretty much drive by just judgment of where the car is on some of the corners. But this is the really hard section now, if we're going to stay on board now. Going through this corner, have a little look there. I have to just throw it in and guess where the apex is, and you can see I actually took it in too early that time and lost a bit of time to P2 and P3, who sights pulled away a bit through that error I made there. So I've got to drive reasonably aggressive now, going down this downhill section and trying to push as hard as I can. You can see getting extremely close to the wall on both sides, and actually hitting the wall on that left hand side, where I'm really trying to get back closer to these drivers in front after that mistake I made, and then trying to make sure I get a clean exit from that corner again, trying to work on that corner. But this car was not the best car to work on my exit on that corner, but with the view that's really blocking the apexes. But it does look good driving this car, I must admit. Even though it was really hard with the visibility, it did look really good driving this car. And the feel, the handling was very good. I'm really impressed with the handling of this car. Considering this is my first time driving it, I did have a very quick go last time this track was at Bathurst in the Group 4 cars. However, I just couldn't get used to the in-car view when I tried it that time. But this time I decided to give it more of a go, and it was good actually that I tried the Dodge Viper out as well in qualifying, because at the first attempt I did, I thought there's no way I can get this into the 2 minutes 10. I was baffled how Zocchi and others were doing that, but eventually I carried on and I got down to a 2 minutes 10.9, which I was really happy about because that was my first ever drive of that car. So hopefully I can get more used to that car as well, because a lot of people picked that car in the last FIA, so it'd be interesting to see if you know, what other people pick this time. I think it's going to vary depending on the tracks, obviously, but it seems it handles a lot better than I thought, that Dodge Viper. It had so much front end grip and a lot of it felt really easy to drive, and it was quite a surprise how easy it was. As you can see there, P3 has made an error going into what I'm going to now try and hang it round the outside. I'm going into this corner and just about make it in time into the braking zone, and it avoids him being able to make a move in that inside. And luckily I had to do that because I couldn't afford to lose any time, because if that McGann gets in my slipstream that was behind me, he would be just breezing past me. So luckily I made that move count and just sticking with the plan that I'm on, doing that real short shifting. You can see it going really short on the shifting. You can see I've actually caught up to MP2 a little bit through these last, you know, after that error. So I had to use a little bit of fuel, that, you know, pushing that little bit harder on some of the revs than what I would have liked because of the error I made. But it was something I had to do because I couldn't risk the McGann getting past me, you know, at that point on the track, because then if too many cars get past you when you're on this strategy of not pitting, it can cause massive issues. I had pretty much a disaster day at this track, I have to be brutally honest. It's probably one of my worst days in a while. I probably should have gone with either the Dodge Viper and just gone aggressive like Zocchi, and I would have probably had a more consistent finishing pattern. But because I was just convinced I needed to get used to this car, I stuck with this plan, and early in the day had a couple of okay results and had some disastrous results later on, but then really late on I managed to get really good results. As you can see there, pretty much letting P4 get past me, because there was no point at that point in the race. I didn't feel the need to fight him. All I wanted to do was just let him pass, get back in his slipstream, and use him as a bit of fuel saving and ability to get myself a bit faster down the straight. Because if you look in the background there, that McGann is getting very close, and I did not want that McGann to get into my slipstream, because if that does when I'm short shifting, he'll just breeze past me. So you can see he actually made a mistake coming out the final corner, which has actually helped me out a bit going into the first corner up the hill now. And also I've got the benefit of the Dodge Viper slipstream now, and luckily that was key really, that he made that error, because if he was, the speed of that McGann compared to the Citroen when you were short shifting was incredible. But the thing with this Citroen is if you were to push it really hard, it was actually reasonably good in a straight line. And you know, I think there was an actual strategy. I could have gone on a different strategy with this Citroen, which I think I might try and do next time this track is on, which obviously I'll try it and see if it works, and if it does I'll upload a video on it. But I'm not 100% sure whether it will, but I feel it might possibly work. As you can see there, trying to get really close to these drivers in front. You can see I've actually caught really close up to P2, as obviously P3 is now putting P2 under a lot of pressure. He's got right up him. Obviously P2 is on the same strategy as myself, but P3 in that Dodge Viper, I wasn't sure at this stage. I didn't know whether he was on an aggressive strategy. The way he was driving it looked very aggressive, but his speed wasn't anywhere near as fast as Zocchi. But Zocchi is incredibly good at this track. He's one of the fastest you'll come across at this track, as you can see on the downhill section, pushing really hard, trying to get as close as I can to P3, and just trying to make sure I can stay in the slipstream for the downhill section again, because although that McGann is a little bit further back, I didn't want to get into a situation where I lose the slipstream with these cars in front. So at the moment the fuel saving's going okay. You can see there I've got just over 4 laps and I've got 4.2 laps of fuel left, but I would have rather had a little bit more at this stage. When I had to drive that a little bit aggressively, it has cost me a little bit of fuel, as you can see there. Using this opportunity now while they're battling to do a bit of fuel saving in their slipstream, because while they're battling they're going to be losing time. So I'm just trying to get as much fuel back as possible whenever I can, because without losing too much time. As you can see there, trying to get on the power and having to go back a little bit richer on the mixture to gain some speed now, to make sure I don't lose that slipstream. As you can see there, they started pulling away, so I'm back into fuel mixture 1 and going through the final corner, trying to hang on to the rear of the cars in front. Obviously it's going to be a little bit easier to hang on to P3 at this stage, purely because he's on a similar strategy to me, but the guy in P3 ran this strategy the last time this race was on, so this was his second time running it, so he's obviously a little bit more refined in the way to do it. This was my first day on this. This was actually one of my earlier races at this track doing this strategy. Later on in the night I managed to get my times a lot better, but it was still a struggle for me with the view of the cockpit, which I think I'd have to mess with to try and get that view a little bit better. As you can see there, using that mixture 2 again to try and bring some of this fuel back. You can see I've got 0.6 on the fuel, and that needs to be a little bit higher. It would have been better if it was like 3.8 or something like that at this stage of the lap, so that I could push a little bit harder at the end. You can see Zocchi with the fastest lap of the race into the 2 minutes 11, and this is why I feel I should have probably gone into the Dodge Viper, because I was able to hit late 2 minutes 11s in race conditions with the Dodge Viper, but I wouldn't have been able to. I don't think I would have been able to keep up with Zocchi. But if I could have just kept with his slipstream a bit, the slipstream's so strong at Bathurst, it would have probably have dragged me on a little bit, and then he probably would have broke the slipstream, but I would have been in a reasonable situation. But I've been deciding to go for this strategy for pretty much the whole day, and like I said, I did lose quite a lot of drive rating, but I've learned my lesson from that. As you can see, I had a massive moment trying. It was really strange. Randomly the car just lost traction on the rear, and it's not something that's happened before. I think I must have just gotten the power a fraction too early whilst putting the lock in a certain way, the steering lock, and it just twitched the back end, and on the downhill section I lose the rear, and look at the time I've lost. It's nearly, I was pretty much right on the gearbox of P2, and now I'm 2.4 seconds behind, so I've lost nearly 2 seconds, maybe 1.5 to 2 seconds just in one silly mistake, and that's going to cause me issues because now I haven't got that slipstream to help me out in terms of saving fuel. So I've got to start doing some fuel saving of my own through the corners, as you can see there, into fuel mixture 3, 2 and 1. It's just something I've got to do now. As you can see, Zocchi is in the pits. He's obviously going to be pitting at the same time as P3 there. P3's in the pits also, so he was also on the same strategy as Zocchi, not going for the the no stopper. It was very hard to do in the Dodge Viper anyway. It just wasn't worthwhile in any other car other than the Citroen. The Citroen is pretty much the only car that can do that when they have this race on with the settings that they run, because of the fuel saving ability of this car. This is why this car is fairly strong in the FIA races, where a one-stop strategy, or in the top 24 stars race, I remember, I think it was Brazil, where a one-stop strategy could work if you could get the speed out of it, and this car won purely because of that. As you can see there, going through the fast right-hander now and up the hill, trying to get as close again to P1 as possible. However, that was probably going to be quite a hard task with the fuel that I had to use to obviously get back close, and then I made that horrible error. But now we're going to have Zocchi gaining on us very fast. As you can see there, he's only a few seconds behind now, and he's obviously got the fresh tyres, the full load of fuel to push really hard, and he's going to be on a charge to try and get as close as possible, as soon as possible. You can see going through these corners again, and you can visually see how hard that corner is, as the bar just blocks the apex totally, and it's really hard to get the turning in point really precise. And then coming through to the downhill section, just trying to push reasonably hard at this point, still 2.4 seconds behind, but I went in a little bit aggressive in this downhill section and had to lift a little bit, as you can see there. Didn't really hook that up, and P1 actually, I think he's starting to pull away slightly as he goes down the hill. And this corner, again, a corner that I do struggle on. I don't seem to be able to hook this up every single time. And now Zocchi's going to be getting extremely close now. As we're going down the hill, you can see he's under a second behind me, so he's going to be picking up that slipstream, and I really did mess that downhill section up. As you can see how much I lost, about 3-4 tenths on P1, and give Zocchi the chance to get in that slipstream. So there wasn't really much point in fighting this position too much, so the plan was to just let him pass. I decided that going into the final corner, I was going to let him pass on the inside, because if it was a chance to do it. You can see now I decided to put the hazards on there. You can see the hazards on, and then I seen him go to the left, and I braked, and I think I caught him out slightly when I tried to lift to let him pass, and he ended up going off wide. But I did try and let him pass. You can see now, even though my hazards are on, this car barely shows it. You could see it on the onboard footage, but at this point you can see now, I'm going to show you where you see him go to the left. At this point he's having a little look to the left, so I thought at this point he's probably going to make a move down that left hand side. I remember from the FIA race when he gave me a little tap into that last corner, and I didn't want that happening again, so I decided to go over to the right hand side of the track and just basically invite him to make the move. So at this point you're going to see in slow motion now, he starts moving to the left, and I seen it in the mirror. You can see now, look at the motion as he's going to the left hand side, and from my perspective this looks like he's going to just go for an attack move down into the final corner. But then you can see he's looking, and then he just goes back into the slipstream, and I'd already started lifting at that point, you could see it, and he tries to get out of the way, obviously to avoid me, where I've tried to lift to let him pass, because I thought he was already going into the move to make the move for into the final corner, because for me it would have been better to let him through on that final corner than on the straight, because I wanted to pick up his slipstream down this straight and on the back straight going up on the main straight now going up the hill, because that would benefit myself more. But he obviously got caught out a bit by that, a bit of wires crossed, but I don't think there was any harm done. I think he realised what I was trying to do. I had my hazards on, it's just that this car, obviously, I wasn't aware that they're pretty much impossible to see the hazard lights on this. You know, I even thought about putting hazards on. I made it clear as day that I was going to the right side to let him pass. I lifted off and braked early, and it just caught him out. So not much I could do there, so I just decided to push it now. There's no point me backing off, because it wasn't really my fault. That was just, you know, it wasn't like I took him out, it was just a misunderstanding of what was going on in the race. So now I'm just got to keep pushing to see if I can get any closer to P1. I've lost quite a bit of time there, because where I braked and lifted and then he went down that inside, I lost about another half a second to a second just by lifting so early and not really carrying the speed through the corner because of what happened. So quite a bit behind now. You can see 4 seconds behind P1. He's obviously got a nice comfortable lead, and I've just got to keep pushing now. You know, I've got one more lap. You don't know what can happen in these races. You can see Zocchi again around 4 seconds behind, but he's going to be able to catch that up. Obviously he's going to be able to lap in the 2 minutes 11s. I'm obviously got the tyre wear now. I've really got to struggle with the fuel. You can see I'm in fuel mixer 2. I would have liked to have been able to use fuel mixer 1. I did later races at the end of the night work out pretty much to use one mixture the whole way and get it pretty much spot on. Obviously by using 2 mixture in certain places that didn't lose you too much time, or 3 mixture, you know, there were certain places you could do it where you didn't really lose any time. So I got that pretty much sorted and got my lap times very consistent in late 13s and early 14s pretty much for the whole race. So it does show you, just the more practice that you do with this strategy, you can get it better. As you can see there, I'm having to do massive fuel saving. You see into fuel mixture 6 now, because I've only got 1.1 laps of fuel and I'm not at the end of the lap yet. So you can see I'm going to be in a situation, I was trying to save some fuel just so that if Zocchi then comes to me on the last lap, now it's the last lap and he's this close, I was going to obviously fight it, because I need to fight. You know, this position, you can see there P1 has made an error on the final corner and I've now got the lead now. So this is going to be really interesting. We've got 3 cars getting very close. 2 pretty much on a similar strategy. I think P2 had a bit more fuel than me, was able to push a little bit harder. Then we got P3 who's got the full fuel and maximum attack. So at this point I was obviously trying to push fairly hard up the hill now, because I didn't want to get overtaken on the final lap before the middle sector, because if I can just hold them off up to this point now, which I've managed to do, as we're going to ride on board now with P2 as he's chasing me down, and you can see in his mirror P3 Zocchi in that Dodge Viper going to be on a charge with them fresh tyres and full fuel. But if I could hold it off to the final straight and get down to the final straight, you know, with a chance of getting the win, it was going to be a really close battle. As you can see now, trying to push, you can see the rear end stepping out as I'm really trying to get on it now. The hard thing is though, I've not got the fuel to push, so I'm pushing as hard as the car will let me with the fuel that I've got. It's a real tricky situation I was in. As going through that corner, understeer just randomly and clip the wall, and then again understeer, I missed the apex onto the grass, just about managed to save it, didn't panic, didn't put the power down, and threw it down that inside line, just about held the lean, and obviously had to take quite a slow line into the corner, and P2 gave me a little tap where he obviously didn't lift off and off, and I got a 1 second penalty, but I think he got more, maybe a 3 or 4 second penalty for that. But it was only a slight touch, it didn't really affect anyone's race. And I think Zocchi actually picked up a penalty also, where P2 tapped me and then Zocchi then tapped into P2. So a real, you know, close ending, as you can see there, going down the street. Just look how close P3 is to P2. This is going to be an insanely close ending. As you can see, he's in the slipstream, he's going to go down the right hand side to make a move. He pulls out to the right hand side, and this actually helps me out in defending from the same driver in the Citroen, from the other driver in the Citroen, as he can't make that move down the right hand side. I managed to hold off the inside line, but went too deep into the corner. Obviously the brakes, the tyres, everything is not really working as well now, because the braking's not as strong with the tyres not working as well, and he manages to get past me. I give him the inside line and don't fight that one, and then going through the final corner, P3 has a little look, gives me a slight little tap on the inside, doesn't really affect me, and then we've got the 1 second penalty to take, which I start taking there and just about go over the line, and somehow I managed to get the win, obviously with the penalties in that race. So an insanely close ending. I mean, some great battling at the end. I gave the position at the end on that final corner. There was no point me fighting Zocchi. He had the inside line, so I just gave him that position just to make sure I can try and get through the corner cleanly, in so that P3 doesn't manage to get past me. Although he did get very close, I think he gave me a little tap, which gave him a little bit of a boost in acceleration over myself. But this is the end battle, as you can see there. Zocchi going for the move, and you're going to see now how it all played out, because this must have been frustrating for the Citroen driver behind me, because as he goes in my slipstream now, Zocchi goes to the right hand side, and I think this was probably deliberate. He goes down to the right hand side, and that kind of blocks off his chance of making a move on the right hand side. So he has to go defensive. He's in P3 now. I go into the corner trying to defend that inside line too strong, just about hold it on the track. Give Zocchi the space on the left hand side. I didn't want to knock him off on that left hand side. He's obviously got the ability then to get past with the speed he's got. I was pretty much just going for it now, using all the last bit of fuel I had. Going into the final corner, you can see there's a little tap, which slowed me down a bit on the acceleration, but then we all had penalties to get rid of, and this was super close at the line. You can see there, I go over the line and just about get myself into P1. So another really close, great race on GT Sport. You can see there that picture. I do love that picture, showing how close it was on that final lap, going into the final few corners. Unfortunately, that little incident with myself and Zocchi, but there was no malicious in it. It was just me trying to let him pass, and we both just got a misunderstanding. I'm sure he'll understand when watching that footage how I thought he was going to make the move. And obviously with the previous event that happened in the FIA race where I got a little tap from him, I did think he was going to go for that move there, so I just give the space and trying to lift early to make sure then I can get a solid exit and get in his slipstream to help myself out on the straights just caused an issue, and unfortunately he went off. So at that point I had to just keep pushing and see if I could get the win, and somehow came away with the win. I think the penalties obviously give me the win in the end, but at the end of the day is not much you can do. The game gives these penalties out for the slightest reasons. A little tap and it'll give someone a penalty. So unfortunately the penalties decide the result, but I'll take the P1 and a thoroughly enjoyable race. So a few errors in that race. I did manage to get my overall time down quite a bit, from that. I managed to get it down to, I think it was a 17 minutes 58, although that still wasn't really good enough to be beating Zocchi when he was running a perfectly clean race. He was able to do it in about 55 and 54, but I would have been within 3 or 4 seconds, I think, still. But I think for me at this track, it's probably better to run it aggressively and push rather than in a different car, rather than fuel saving it, because especially in the view, the cockpit view in that Citroen was really hard to use. Maybe if I can get the view a little bit better, I can try an alternative strategy in that Citroen, which I might try the next time this race is on, just to see how it'll work. But I have got an idea. Whether it'll happen and work is another thing. If it does, I'll do a video on it. If not, I'll try a different car. Anyway guys, hope you enjoyed that video. A thoroughly enjoyable race. If you want to see more races like this, make sure you sub the channel. I do upload every single day on GT Sport. And also, make sure you click the notification button so you don't miss any future videos. Like I said, I do upload every day. And give this video a thumbs up if you've enjoyed the video. Thanks again for watching, everyone.